We talked earlier in the show about building more resilient communities as our climate changes. Those discussions don't always include indigenous voices, but they need to.
Absolutely. NOAA has launched a partnership with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium with that goal in mind, I should say. We're joined now by NOAA Administrator Dr. Rick Spinrad and Community Development Manager Jackie Schaefer. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, both of you. Jackie, I want to start with you. Let's first talk about how climate change is already impacting Native Alaskans.
Yeah, so we have 144 threatened communities that are facing impacts, direct impacts to our people and to our communities. So 43% of the state of Alaska's communities are threatened by climate impacts. And that is a large number. So I think this partnership is a good start.
And Rick, can you talk about the goals of this partnership?
Absolutely. There's basically three goals that we have here, which I would say target the kind of issues you just heard about from Jackie. And the first is to get some sense, a landscape assessment, if you will, of what the nature is of the impacts of climate change. Second is we want to work with ANTHC to develop an advisory group comprised of elders, tribal members, people who really know the issues. And then the initial product will be what we call an unmet needs assessment. Where are the areas we can first have impact by investment, by development of new capabilities and services?
So, Jackie, is it erosion? Is it flooding? Is it drought? Or all the above? What are some of those specific ways that you guys are getting impacted?
The impacts are a variety of ways, and erosion, flooding, melting permafrost, which is unique to the Arctic. All of it is impacting our communities. When you look at Mother Nature, the sea ice was a natural barrier for our communities. All the communities are coastal or river communities. And so that natural barrier was removed because of the melting sea ice. And so that right there creates major threat to infrastructure and community roads and to our people and to their way of life. So their subsistence way of life and their food security is also being threatened.
And Rick, talk about why this mission is so important to NOAA right now.
So what we're seeing in Alaska is that climate change is already impacting the lives, livelihoods, and lifestyles, as you just heard from Jackie. It's an indicator of the kinds of problems we're apt to see elsewhere on the globe, certainly in the lower 48. I had the opportunity just 2 weeks ago to spend time visiting some of the villages with some of Jackie's staff, Shaktoolik and Shishmaref, and see how those places are being hit. The lessons we take away from what we do with communities in Alaska are equally applicable to the problems we'll be facing elsewhere in the country.
All right, so Jackie, let's talk more about the ANTCH. I want to make sure I get that right, and how they're already helping Native Americans in other ways besides, that climate focus.
Yeah, so the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium has current resources in place. One is a local environmental observation network that is a global network now that actually uses local observers in the communities to report climate events, whether it's melting permafrost that has drained a lake or it's major erosion where you see exposed permafrost. It connects us with the research and science that allows us to really study what's happening. And if there are those triggers that are melting the permafrost at an accelerated rate. So it's really important.
And Rick, how are you guys addressing the, history of kind of distrust between indigenous people, even black and brown people, with the government over all these years?
So I think that this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has really knuckled down with respect to its commitment to work with underserved, vulnerable communities, and especially take advantage of things like indigenous knowledge. So this is one of the very first efforts we are undertaking. It's a consequence of having worked with tribes, tribal organizations as well, to define what the priorities are, co-developing research projects, co-developing recommendations, and co-developing solutions. So for us, it's a fundamentally different way of doing business. And I would say this is the first pilot we are doing with the tribal organization. So I'm really excited about how we are doing this in very close cooperation with ANTHC.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you both coming on. Jackie Schaefer from the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, and also Dr. Rick Spinrad from NOAA. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, it's great that they're getting together because, again, we have such history, sometimes a dark history of relations between the government and indigenous people as well as black and brown communities. But, you know, things, and thinking of the years past, are always constantly changing and evolving, and so will the trust.
Yeah, it will.